On a cold, eerie night, Inspector Rehan receives a chilling anonymous call: "If you want the truth, come to the cemetery." What he discovers buried beneath the earth is far more terrifying than he ever imagined. Before we dive into this story, let us know where you're tuning in from, and if you believe in standing up for what's right, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. The night was darker than usual, the air thick with silence. Sitting in his car, Inspector Rehan absent-mindedly tapped his fingers against the steering wheel, lost in thought. His mind was always occupied with pending cases, unsolved mysteries, and the ever-elusive truth. Then, the phone rang. The shrill sound sliced through the quiet, making him instinctively straighten up. An unknown number flashed on the screen. He hesitated for a brief moment before answering. "If you want to know the truth, come to the cemetery immediately." The voice was devoid of any emotion, robotic and cold, sending a strange chill down his spine. For a split second, uncertainty gripped him. But he was a man of duty, an inspector driven by an insatiable thirst for truth. He couldn't ignore this. Without wasting another moment, he alerted his team and sped towards the graveyard. The cemetery was eerily silent, the trees swaying ever so slightly in the wind, their rustling leaves whispering secrets to the night. The dim moonlight cast long, haunting shadows on the uneven ground. And then he saw it, a freshly dug grave. His instincts flared up. Something wasn't right. The soil looked unsettled, as if someone had hurriedly buried something, or someone. "Dig it up," he ordered, his voice firm yet laced with an uneasy tension. The officers exchanged nervous glances, but obeyed. The shovel hit something hard within minutes. A coffin. A new one. Rehan's heart pounded as they pried it open. Inside lay a man, barely alive. His breaths were faint, his body weak, but there was no mistaking who he was. Faraz. The renowned detective. The man who had been missing for 3 weeks. A collective gasp rippled through the team. Faraz's eyes fluttered open, panic clouding his gaze. His voice was barely above a whisper, but the weight of his words sent a shiver down Rehan's spine. "They're still after me. They don't want me to leave alive." Who were they? And why had they buried him alive? Faraz's hands trembled as he gripped the bottle of water an officer handed him. He drank slowly, each sip grounding him back to reality. The fear in his eyes, however, remained. "They were going to kill me," he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. Inspector Rehan leaned in closer. "Who? Who wanted you dead?" Faraz hesitated, his mind replaying the horror he had endured. Finally, his lips parted, voice trembling, yet steady. "They always stay in the shadows. I thought I had outsmarted them, but they were always one step ahead." Rehan felt a strange knot tighten in his chest. Whoever they were, they had orchestrated this masterfully. 3 weeks ago. Faraz exhaled shakily, his thoughts slowly piecing together. "I was so close, and then they came. I couldn't escape." Rehan studied him closely. He wasn't just a victim. He was a man who had seen something he wasn't supposed to. "Close to what?" Rehan asked, his voice now a mix of curiosity and urgency. Faraz looked up, his gaze piercing through the inspector. "The truth." For a moment, silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. Then, Faraz inhaled deeply, as if gathering strength. "I was investigating a mafia network, one that the police hadn't even scratched the surface of. I found something. Something dangerous. Evidence that could destroy them." Rehan listened intently, every word sending his mind into overdrive. "But they found out. Before I could do anything, they got to me first. They held me captive, starved me, tortured me." Faraz swallowed hard, his fingers tightening around the empty water bottle. "They wanted to know where the evidence was. But I didn't break." A deep, unsettling realization crept into Rehan's mind. "And when they couldn't get the information out of you?" He trailed off. Faraz nodded. "They buried me alive, hoping to silence me forever. A shudder passed through the team. The cruelty, the precision, it was all too calculated. Then, something unexpected happened. A constable, searching Faraz's jacket for any more clues, pulled out a folded piece of paper. His brows furrowed as he handed it to Rehan. Rehan unfolded it carefully. A single address was scribbled on it. Faraz's eyes darkened. That's where it all started, and maybe where it will all end. Part 4: The final confrontation and justice prevails. The address led them to an old, abandoned mansion, its very presence exuding an air of secrecy. The moment Rehan and his team stepped inside, they knew they had found something big. A hidden passage was discovered, a narrow, underground tunnel leading to a massive bunker. But this was no ordinary hideout. It was a control center filled with men who, the moment they spotted the police, knew their game was over. Rehan raised a hand, silently signaling his team. "No one leaves," he ordered. Chaos erupted. The criminals tried to flee, but the officers were quicker, intercepting every escape attempt. A few resisted, but resistance was futile. One by one, they were overpowered and arrested. Then, amidst the commotion, one of them cracked. "It wasn't our choice," he shouted, desperation clear in his voice. "We were just following orders." Rehan's eye sharpened. "Whose orders?" The man hesitated, fear flickering in his expression. But then, as if realizing there was no escape, he spoke. "The boss. The one pulling all the strings." Rehan felt a jolt of satisfaction. They had reached the heart of the operation. The following days were a blur of investigation and pursuit. The mastermind was finally identified, a seemingly respectable businessman who had been orchestrating crimes from behind a facade of legitimacy. The final chase was intense, but in the end, the law prevailed. He was arrested, his empire dismantled. As the handcuffs clicked around the man's wrists, he sneered, "You think this is over? This is just the beginning." But his threats held no weight. The shadows he had ruled from had been burned away by the light of justice. Faraz, standing nearby, let out a slow, weary breath. He turned to Rehan, his expression a mix of relief and lingering exhaustion. "If you hadn't come in time, I would have been buried forever." Rehan met his gaze, a small but firm smile on his lips. The truth can never stay buried. And today, justice has won.